Hello everyone, and welcome back to the FinTech Times. We're here today at day 2 of the MoneyLIVE Summit in London. Today I'm joined by Daniel. Daniel, how are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Good. Are you enjoying day 2?
I am, yes.
Yeah. It's great to be here and see so many people in the flesh. So many new faces today, so it's good. I was wondering, just before we start our conversation, Daniel, if you could just tell our viewers a little bit about who you are and where you've come from today, please.
Right, Daniel Brosseau. I'm head of financial services, strategy, and experience for Medallia. Medallia is the leading vendor of SaaS-based platforms for experience management, which means that we're in the business of capturing customer signals from direct feedback, through surveys or other means, as well as signals that you might get from customers through their digital behaviors, through their voice and text that they might provide you. And we do artificial intelligence, machine learning, language analysis, and we take all those signals, process them and analyze them, and turn them into actions that you can take to improve customer experience as well as employee experience, to essentially create greater loyalty, to reduce churn, improve revenue, drive cross-sell, upsell, and generally compete strongly on the basis of customer experience.
Well, that does sound very interesting, and I think you've really underlined the importance of good and accurate data within fintech, and how that has become increasingly paramount to providing good services at the end of the day. But giving data and using data in a certain way will be able to help businesses design more bespoke offerings to their customers. So it's a very interesting concept. You mentioned just a little bit there that you were in the experience management sector, and when we look at this through a lens of the pandemic, I was just wondering how you'd seen the sector change.
Yeah, well, I think there's a bit of a new normal in experience management that's been emerging even before the pandemic, but now is sort of accelerated due to the pandemic, and particularly in financial services. I think first off that there's going from customer experience as a function or a must-do, listening to your customers, responding to your customers, to really thinking about enriching customer lives as a real purpose of the business that everybody needs to really be involved in. And that experience management, as a result of that, is more than just a function or a nice to have. It's something that's a critical competence of the organization that needs to be woven into the fabric, and more of in a horizontal way than, say, a siloed way in an organization. And so as a result of that, you really need to have strong technology and capabilities so that everybody can be involved in understanding what your customers are going through, what your employees are going through, and then be able to react and respond to that.
It really goes to show a lot about business agility, and especially when we consider things like new entrants to the market, or especially purely digital startups. We could see them as being able to utilize this kind of information, this style of data, in a much more effective way, in some ways due to their nature and due to how they've established themselves. But when we look at their opponents, the more traditional players of the space, you could understand how that journey wouldn't be so seamless for a number of reasons. I mean, what's your thoughts on how the race to digital has changed how these incumbent players are looking at the game?
I think there's a number of different aspects to it. I mean, both positive and negative. On the positive side, the rapid adoption of customers to digital is good news for banks and financial institutions, because it reduces those costs of interactions, it reduces costs to roll out new products, it increases the frequency of interactions, improves the data that you're capturing from them. But for traditional financial institutions, it's tough as well, because they more so than the newer players operate on the basis of relationships and building trust and personal interactions, right? So they've quickly had to figure out, well, how do you how do you humanize digital interactions, and how do you digitize human interactions, right? And how do you move seamlessly between somebody operating on digital but then having easy access to a human without losing what happened on the digital side and back and forth, right? And there's a lot of work being done to figure out, what are those ideal journeys looking like, either from getting a mortgage to getting advice for investments and anything else in somebody's financial life, right? So if somebody starts in digital to investigate, they typically want advice in these more complex interactions. And for traditional financial institutions, it's still an open book on what the best journeys are for those, and those journeys are different for different individuals. And as we move forward, we'll get to a place where individual journeys will actually be orchestrated based on individual data, and even data that comes in the moment, right? So that you can actually orchestrate and define an interaction in real time based on what customers are doing right now on the website or on the mobile app, based on what we know about a customer and based on what they're doing right now. So that that's really where the future is going, and kind of the new normal for traditional players. We at Medallia, are seeing a big take up in the idea of engagement-based or feedback-based engagement management, right? So take all that feedback that your customers are telling you, feed that into a system that can then create a greater experience in the moment in real time.
Well, yes, that sounds fantastic in that it would adhere to the growing customer demands and the need for more personalization that we're really seeing sweeping across all of the industry. And it sounds like something that's going to be very applicable to some of today's sessions, for example, at MoneyLIVE. So yes, well, it's been great to speak to you today, Daniel, and thank you very much for joining us. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day today.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you very much.